Hello aspirants, looking at current affairs for 20th Feb. The news items that we have picked up from the Hindu newspaper are these 11. We'll look at them in detail. The first one, Rail Bhavan, North Block spar after budget merger. So Rail Bhavan is where the Railway Ministry is located and North Block is where the Finance Ministry is located. So the two ministries are having a dispute after the budget merger. The railway budget was merged with the general budget. Budget 2017-18 was the first budget announced with the two budgets merged. So after this merger, the finance ministry has now asked the railway ministry to remit all the annual dividends it has received from the 14 central public sector undertakings under its purview. So there are 14 central PSUs under the railway ministry. So they have given their dividends to the railway ministry. So now the finance ministry is asking you provide that to us, because now railway ministry, finance ministry, the budgets are merged. So now railway ministry is not an independent authority or providing finances to the central PSUs, because railway ministry will also not have to pay the dividends to the government. So same way it's saying that central PSU should also not pay dividends to railway ministry, it should go directly to the finance ministry now. But the railway ministry is arguing that the basic reason why the two entities were merged, these two budgets were merged, so that this dividend requirement which was there, that the railway ministry has to pay dividend to the finance ministry, that should be done away with. So if that was the benefit, so if that benefit will not come, because if you're not having letting us have the dividends which we were earlier receiving, that will affect our financial autonomy too and affect our resources. So then what is the positive aspect of this merger then? So that is the question which railway ministry is putting forth before the finance ministry. But you should know that all central public sector undertakings, all the central ministries remaining apart from railways, come under the central government one single budget. So all other central PSUs have to remit their dividends to the finance ministry only. But since railways had this special position, so that is why now these differences are cropping between the two ministries. Also, another point is, what is this dividend basically, which has to be paid? So a dividend is paid, means dividend is a share of the profit. It is paid here, say, annually. So this is paid because the capital which has been put in is the capital provided by the government. So since investment of capital is being done, the share of the profit also goes to the government. So this is the term capital at charge. So this is the center's investment in the Indian Railways. So this is treated as loan in perpetuity. So central government provides funding finances to all central PSUs and all authorities. So that is why this is capital at charge provided, and that is why a dividend is to be paid as such. So now the railway ministry is arguing that the central PSUs, the earnings of the central PSUs, that cannot be considered as capital at charge. So this is that dividend received by Indian Railways from CPSUs is not part of the capital at charge. It says this is the traffic earning projections. So what earnings they are making, that is the projection of that, from which a dividend is paid to the railway ministry. So because it is investing in that, and then dividend is paid, and that is also used for further investing. What does the railway ministry do? It invests for its own functioning. So why should it go to the finance ministry, to the central finances? Then what will be the financial status of railway ministry as such? So here the governments are fighting for money to be retained in their ministry, so that it can be used for its own ministry's welfare. So that is the point of argument here, that railway ministry wants that its railway earnings, there should not be any shortfall to, plus it should be allowed to have functional autonomy to invest further in its own functioning. So that is the whole argument. The Indian Railways was required to pay about 9,000 crore as dividend to the finance ministry. So this was for the capital finance ministry has invested, government has invested in the Indian Railways. So this, now it was no longer required to pay this 9,000 crore. And the dividend which central PSUs are expected to pay, these 14 central PSUs will be paying in 2017-18 to the railway ministry actually is 850 crore. But that's what the news is. The finance ministry is saying this 850 crore should go to the finance ministry, not to the railway ministry. So this is the whole point regarding this. So let's see how it is resolved. So it is given as a gist in this image. Also, another thing which is highlighted is the present budget. We have already discussed this, that in the budget that 3 railway PSUs will be put on the stock market. So they will be listed on the stock market. So this listing has also been taken as a surprise by the railway board members, because finance minister, it's the general budget, he made the announcements without the railway board taken into confidence, because it's general budget now. So that's the question which is they are raising, that the functional autonomy, financial autonomy of railways might be affected. So that is the fear here. So these are the three: IRCTC, Indian Railway, Finance Corporation, and Ircon. They will be listed on the stock market, has been announced in the budget. Then for the other PSUs too, it's there. So every PSU has to pay a minimum dividend of 30% of its net profit, or 5% of net worth, whichever is higher, subject to the maximum dividend permitted under the law. So this PSU payment is already there. This is during the demonetization time news, that the finance chiefs at PSUs were intensely negotiating government officials to reduce the dividend demand because of the problems at that time. So this is regarding just November-December 2016 news. So this is the total dividend earned by the government as such. So there are around 112 PSU, state-run firms. State here means government, not at the state level. Government firms in 2014-15. So 44% of the net profit goes to the government as dividend. So that is the final. And maximum of it would come from oil sector companies, because they have the maximum profit. So that is there. So a large dividend outgo may force a PSU to borrow more for fund expansion. So if they're giving a lot of dividend to the government, paying a lot of dividend, then PSUs will have to borrow money. So for further investment, further expansion, it will have to borrow money. So this will affect its credit ratings and make the funds costlier. So if they are borrowing a lot, then credit ratings of theirs would also be affected. So then if credit ratings are affected, then the funding rate at which interest they have to pay. If credit rating is low, then the interest rate would be high for the funds which they take, loans which they take. So that is the whole argument too. So that is why they were arguing that we should be made to pay less dividend to the government and allowed to have some financial autonomy here too. Then the next news item is rebels kill Indian working with infrastructure firm in South Sudan. So this is the first casualty of an Indian in the civil war which is going on in Sudan since 2016. So South Sudan, which is the latest country formed and is a member of United Nations. It became a member of UN in 2011. It is the 193rd, the last member of UN as such. And this dispute which is going on, it was formed out of Sudan. So Sudan divided into Sudan and South Sudan, the north and the south. So it was based on religion too. The Sudan in the north is comprising majorly of Arabs, Muslims, and South Sudan is comprising of the Bantu tribe too, which are Christians. And the South Sudan is particularly more economically backward. So poverty and backwardness is much more in South Sudan. The oil-rich regions are present in South Sudan, and the oil pipelines take them up north. And north is richer than the south. And north is Muslim Arabs. So this is the whole dispute. The civil war was going on for a long time. Darfur, if you have heard of that region, is a disputed region in Sudan, which has been asked by UPSC in prelims earlier too. So presently now the Sudan and South Sudan have divided. So a new country has been formed as South Sudan. But the dispute is there on one region which still remains on dispute. So this is Abyei region. It's an energy-rich region between Sudan and South Sudan. So this dispute has resulted in a civil war emerging again last year. Even India had launched its Operation Sankat Mochan. So this was launched in July 2016 to evacuate Indian nationals caught in this civil war. So that was there, but not many undertook the assistance from this. Only 154 people chose to be evacuated, and so that is the South Sudan dispute. You can see South Sudan is the region here. Abyei region is here. Up is South Sudan, and you can see the mix of population here too. In South Sudan too, there are some Arab regions. You can see. So that is there. Dinka and Nuer are the two major ethnic groups in South Sudan. Juba is its capital, and you can see the joining countries in Africa too. So it was earlier a British colony. As I said, Arabic Muslims in north, Bantu Christians in south. So it was an ethnic conflict. This is the Darfur region. You can see in Sudan. This part is in Sudan and this is part in South Sudan. So this was the region where the conflict between Arab Africans and non-Arab Africans was at its peak. So since 2003, this conflict was going on, and finally Sudan was formed as a separate country in 2011, and then it became a member of UN to 54th country in Africa. And the conflict got resolved, but then it did not last long because since 2016, again the dispute over this Abyei region has emerged. There's another disputed region here. You can see Ilemi Triangle. So this is dispute between South Sudan and the neighbor here, Kenya. Kenya is here. So Kenya and Abyei and South Sudan are having a dispute over this. You can see they are mostly Christians in South Sudan. Maximum economic revenue comes from oil. 98% is from oil, and the Abyei region is the dispute between North Sudan and South Sudan. So that is threatening peace here. Humanitarian crisis because the poverty levels are quite high. Up to 90% of the population lives on $0.50 a day. It has the world's highest infant mortality rate, lowest education indicators. So that is, and there are many rebel groups within South Sudan who are fighting against the government in South Sudan. They say that the government in South Sudan is corrupt and autocratic. So this is the whole mess in which South Sudan is in. Then the next news item is decommission Farakka barrage, Bihar government. So Farakka barrage, barrage is a barrier, a dam. So this is a dam which has been built up on the Ganga river in West Bengal. So this has been, initially it was planned and constructed in 1960s. The main purpose was helping flush out sediment depositions from the Kolkata port and also the drinking water requirements to be taken care of West Bengal. So where is this? The location will help us understand it better. So this you can see is West Bengal. Bihar is here. So Nitish Kumar government is demanding that it should be stopped. So this is Bihar, below is Jharkhand. So this is the Farakka barrage. This is river Ganga flowing up here. The river here down which you see is Hooghly river. So here Kolkata port located here. So the Farakka barrage, this barrage when water is stopped here and water flow is allowed in bulk. So that helps in desilting activities. So since at the ports generally silting means sediment deposits taking place. So sediment deposits have to be flushed out. So that was the main purpose, that when water would come with force along this, then the sediment deposits would be easily flushed out, plus the Hooghly water flow would increase. That would help in taking care of drinking water requirements of this population here. But Bihar now is saying that this Farakka barrier being created here is resulting in flooding in Bihar. So that is why it is saying that decommissioning of this is the best thing to do. It says even Kolkata port has said that after this Farakka barrage, actually rather than desilting taking place, silting has increased. So it is not serving the original purpose for which it was put up to. So that is why the Bihar government is saying decommission it, remove it. And it is also a huge dispute between Bangladesh and India as well, because Farakka barrage, here barrier being created and this water diversion taking place reduces the water flow into Bangladesh. So this Ganga river, it flows into Bangladesh. It's called Padma in Bangladesh. A clearer image is given here. So you can see Ganga as it flows out. This is called Padma. Brahmaputra as it flows into Bangladesh, it is called Jamuna. So Ganga becomes Padma, Brahmaputra becomes Jamuna, and the Jamuna meets Padma. And then after meeting Padma, then Padma meets Meghna. The Barak river also adds up from India into Meghna, and Meghna is the main river which flows out into Bay of Bengal. So this are the names changes of the rivers in Bangladesh from India. So here it affects the flow of water here too. So Bangladesh also has a dispute on Farakka barrage. Apart from that, another case pointed out in this image is also regarding fish movement. So Hilsa is a fish which was available in abundance in these rivers presently, especially Padma and Meghna in Bangladesh. Now their presence has been drastically reduced and the blame is put on Farakka barrage. Barrage results in the fishes not being reaching. So they move towards the west also, and now they are not being able to move towards the west. So here in Ganga region too, the fish supply has been drastically reduced. You can see 10 years ago the movement of Hilsa is shown, and now present movement westwards, it is stopped midway, is shown. So before the barrier you can see it went up to here. So that is another point. So ecologically also it is affected. This is also highlighted. He says the barrage is blamed by Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar that it constrictingly severely affects the movement of habitations and normal cycle of aquatic species. So this is an example of Hilsa as well here. Then the next news item is villagers protest acquisition of land for airport. So these are villagers in Kishangarh town in Rajasthan which are protesting against the upcoming airport here. So this is Kishangarh in Ajmer district in Rajasthan. So they have their land being taken away for airport development, and they are saying that sufficient compensation has not been provided for them. So they are still protesting for fair compensation, and they are directly appealing to the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, to not dispose their names off in the name of development. So this is a protest going on since 2013. They have been protesting. The next news item is home is where the care is. So this is in line with the list of articles which Hindu is carrying every day since yesterday on elderly. So this is regarding old age homes. So presently it says the trend is being seen that parents are abandoned by their children and they are sent to these government old age homes to such an extent that government old age homes have now become overcrowded. So this is becoming a norm as such. So then the parents, once the parents, elders are taken care of by the government, then they are free, they can have their own lives, they can go and work in any place they want. So this a trend has to be stopped. Is clearly seen that this should not become a trend. So now these government old age homes are screening through the applications which come to them, and then only aging parents are admitted here. So here in these government old age homes, they also get an assistance of ₹1,000 monthly. So assistance is also provided to them. So you can see the census projections to the old age, the elderly population burden on the country would increase. So in census 2011, this number of seniors here means 60 years plus, was about 76 million. And in 2025, it is projected to be 173 million. And by 250, it will go up to 240 million. So this is going to increase. So this will require investments being made for them. Even senior housing is one aspect which real estate sector also highlights. The senior citizens housings are provided for, but then how much of a market is there for this, and how much of these elderly are in a position to live independently on their own in separate housings is a question too. So you can see according to this survey done in 2004, nearly 3% of persons aged above 60 were living alone, and living only with their spouse were 9.3%. Around 35.6% were living with their children. And of course, there are many who were homeless and destitute. So that aspect is also there. So this is the point put forth regarding old age homes. So we need to have social acceptance of the elderly, and taking them in care homes should be also made an ideal environment. There needs to be a regulatory framework for that too. Laws need to be put in place also to ensure their dignity and security is a concern. Plus also we hear of many thefts, robberies, even rapes of elderly. So that is there. Then another point is regarding having nurses and medical professionals trained, certified for taking care of the elderly. So this is also called geriatrics. So this is what is covered in this article. This is seen patterns of old age dependency. So the bulk of elderly in India live either with their spouses or their children. So this we saw. So this is being shown here for urban females, urban males. So urban females living with their children is high. You can see here. So another reason given for this too, rural females also. These are rural females and rural males. So the females are generally, is said, kept with the families with their children so that they can take care of the household too. They can do household chores. They can take care of grandchildren. So they are an asset in some way. So they are more so retained by the children. So this is shown here. You can see. So the living is shown here. The next news item is foreign funds surge under NDA rule. So this is the last fiscal 2015 financial year's flow of foreign donors funding to the NGOs in India. So this was 17,208 crores. So it says it is the highest in 5 years because over the years it has been increasing every year. So last financial year it has increased, but we are seeing that the NGOs are being barred by the present government, the trend which has escalated. This trend was going on last year. The last government, UPA government, has also taken initiatives and had cancelled NGO licenses. But this has escalated this year too with the present government. So there are 33,000 NGOs registered under FCRA. So this Foreign Contribution Regulation Act was passed to regulate the contribution which is coming to these NGOs. Means if foreign contribution is coming in, so for what purpose is it being used has to be regulated. It should not be used for affecting the security of the country or affecting the peace and harmony in the country, or even economic security as such should not be affected. So all these points are being put in under this Foreign Contribution Regulation Act to regulate these contributions. So they have to file their annual returns with the Home Ministry because they are receiving foreign contributions. So only 19,000 of these have received foreign contributions last year. And the most famous example of amongst the NGOs which have been put under the watch list is of Compassion International. So this is said to be the single largest donor for India as well. And this led to a diplomatic standoff between the two countries, India and USA, because then US Secretary of State also made a strong pitch for Compassion International. It's a Christian NGO. So it was blocked. It was put in watch list in the sense that prior permission would be required before every contribution made, and it would be rejected by the government if it wanted. So Compassion International recently also we read the news that it said it is not possible for it to function in this manner. So it is calling off its operations in India. So it has stopped. This was just recently after Donald Trump took charge. So it has stopped providing assistance to India. It will wrap up its operations in India now. So that has been announced. So it says in 2015, Home Ministry notified new rules. So this required NGOs to give an undertaking that their acceptance of foreign funds will not affect sovereignty and integrity of India, friendly relations with foreign state, and not affect communal harmony. So the NGOs, this Compassion International also has been restricted by the present government, its functioning, its funding, because it says that this funding which is given to NGOs in India are indulging in religious convergence. So they are promoting religious convergence, promoting Christianity. So that is why. So it has been blocked. So that is the point put forth. And another NGO famously which has been blocked was the registration was cancelled. This was put in prior permission list, watch list. This Greenpeace International had its registration cancelled. So that was on the ground that it is affecting countries' economic security. So what was this also we'll see. So this statement is given. Home Ministry has cancelled registration over 10,000 NGOs in 2015 for not complying with these norms. So under annual returns category 2 under FCRA, the NGOs have to take an undertaking, and this was extra points which were added, disrupting communal harmony in 2015. And already in this Act of 2010, these provisions are there that it should not affect the security, economic interest, public interest, etc. So that is there. So this is FCRA 2010, the provisions to ensure transparency of foreign funds, if not used by international activities, etc. So then requirements are also there that it should have functioned in a chosen field of work during last 3 years. So only those NGOs can receive foreign funds. So these provisions are there. And this is the money which has come in from FCRA registered NGOs, the money which has been received as such. You can see. So it has increased over the years. So its present increase is as it is increasing over the years. Presently also in 2015-16, it has seen an increase. So there are 16 major NGOs, major donors, foreign donors, NGOs, and at least 14 of them are Christian organizations, and most of them are based in USA. Right? So Compassion International was put in watch list. Now it has declared it is wrapping up. This is regarding the Greenpeace International and why Greenpeace India was stopped from working in the country. Its registration was cancelled because it is affecting economic security of the country. So what was this economic security aspect is shown here. So here you can see foreign funding was regulated under FCRA Act. It was registered in 2005-06 under this FCRA, and it had received 4.45 crores in 7 years, in the last 7 years since it was registered. So major contribution was from Greenpeace International only. So Greenpeace India receiving major contribution from them, and they were protesting against coal blocks, coal-fired power plants. So Greenpeace is basically an environment-related NGO. So all these environment-related initiatives which were taken, which would affect the environment, which would affect the people, were protested against. So you can see these coal blocks were protested against. Then it was protesting against genetically modified food also. It was protesting against e-waste, electronic waste produced. It was protesting against palm oil, which was imported from Indonesia, because it was saying that this is encouraging deforestation and peat destruction in the countries there. So all these were the points on which protests were taking place, spearheaded by Greenpeace India. It says that it aimed to support demands of migrant construction workers to raise cadre of field level protesters. So there were many people supporting and protesting along with them, but the government accused them that all these protests are resulting in developmental works not taking place effectively. So the way the Environment Ministry, like in previous government too, we had Jairam Ramesh under the UPA government as the environment minister, and he is a person who stood up for the cause of environment. So that resulted in difficulties in the functioning of the other ministries. So, industry development ministry wants industries to be established, and environment ministry putting a hindrance there. So at that time also Jairam Ramesh was transferred from Environment Ministry to Rural Development Ministry, though he did a very good job in Rural Ministry too. So this is seen that environment related concerns being raised, of course, affect development. So even within the government also these steps are taken. So this was only an NGO protesting. So of course government finds it as a hindrance in development. So that is why on basis of economic security, its registration was cancelled. So that is there. So these are regarding the various NGOs too, the funding which comes from them, which is shown. So Compassion International has been the major funder in the country for long now. Then the next news item is India not in race with China in Africa outreach, Ansari. So Vice President Hamid Ansari is on a visit to Africa in these two countries, Rwanda and Uganda. So there have been many visits by the Indian President, Vice President and the Prime Minister in Africa. So these visits, Africa in July 2016, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had also visited these four countries. So these are majorly East African countries, Kenya, Tanzania, then Mozambique and South Africa also. So now presently he is visiting Rwanda and Uganda, which are lying here. So in this region, so it is shown here. So Kenya, Tanzania, this is Rwanda and Uganda. So these two countries would be visited by the Vice President now. So he has, on his visit, he has made a statement that India is not racing with China in African investment, because in terms of funding and financial assistance being provided, of course we cannot compete with China, but then we are functioning taking into consideration the requirements of African partners. So the development partners in Africa, they themselves decide which aspect they want to use of Indian knowledge and expertise, and as per their requirement we are providing them assistance, rather than like China, which is barging into Africa, as it is said, that it's domination rather than cooperation. So he is highlighting that aspect, that India cooperates and takes into consideration their requirements and then functions, and financial assistance is also provided, though we are having our own financial constraints too. So that is being put forth by him, and he says we are not competing with China as such or any other country, because our way of functioning is different. So that's what he says. This area you should also know, this is Lake Victoria. You can see it is shared between these countries surrounding it, right? This area, Rwanda and Uganda, where the visit is also taking place, you should know about this Lake Victoria. So Lake Victoria is shared between these countries, Uganda, Tanzania and Kenya, and this is the largest lake in Africa, and it is having the equator passing through it. It is also said to be the largest lake in the tropical region in the world, and it's a freshwater lake. So this is there. Then this is the Lake Tanganyika here, and this is the Great Rift Valley which is formed. Then this is regarding India and Africa, the combined population and the strength which they have. Indian diaspora, Indians in Africa, Africans in India. There are 50,000 Africans in India, 3 million. Means 30 lakh Africans, Indians in Africa. So this is what we have. Then India-Africa bilateral trade is also increasing over the years. It has increased 20 times in the past 15 years. We are having also UN peacekeeping missions in which Indians are there present in Africa. So there are 4,500 Indian soldiers on ground in Africa under various UN peacekeeping missions. Also, we have a fully formed Indian female police unit present in Liberia. So Liberia is a country here, somewhere, right? Then various scholarships are provided to African students in India each year. Then India-owned operated companies are also there. They are the second largest corporate employers in Nigeria. So we do have a presence here as well. And we are also having investment done in infrastructure projects in over 40 countries in Africa. So that is 3% of South African population is of Indian origin. Then the next news item is government meets stent makers to ensure steady supply. So we already discussed this in news few days back that the prices of stents have been now been regulated. So the prices have been fixed. So this action of the government has resulted in complaints coming up of scarcity of stents in the market. So this is said to be an artificial scarcity which has been created, and the reason given by them is that they are relabeling. The price has been relabeled now. That's why the withdrawing of devices has taken place from the market. So now the government had a meeting with these stent makers and importers too, because many of them are imported stents too. So their availability will be reviewed, because reports are coming in, and government has got the assurance that there will be no artificial scarcity created by them, and they would make sure that the stents are available in the market. There is enough stock and there will be no shortage. So this is the prices which have been decided. Bare metal stents will be 7,260, and drug eluting, which will release drugs also, these stents would be 29,600. So this was announced on February 13 by the government. So this is reducing the price by about 85%. So this is the step taken, because we had seen this had been coming in, reports had been coming in for long, that the stents which are being sold are sold with a huge commission taken by government hospitals, taken by doctors, and this is artificially increasing the prices of these stents. So now regulation had finally come in, and now it has been assured that the availability will also be there of stents in the market. So what is this stent? It's a tiny expandable metal scaffold. So this is a stent. It is inserted in narrowed or weakened arteries. So arteries generally they get blocked. So in these cases, when arteries get blocked, these stents are put in. So the procedure for putting this stent in the artery is called angioplasty. So this is angioplasty because it affects the heart. So it results in cardiac diseases. So the burden of cardiac diseases, cardiovascular diseases in the country is also very high. It says that around 25% deaths in India are attributed to cardiovascular diseases. So these coronary artery diseases, the most common type of cardiovascular diseases in the country. So this 90 to 95% of all such cases and deaths are because of this coronary artery diseases. So these arteries, when they get blocked, when these stents are put in place through this angioplasty procedure, then once they come here, you can see the balloon inside it inflates, and this stent expands, and then it is kept in place, and it results in the free flow of blood being allowed. So this is there. So cost of angioplasty in private hospitals and in government hospitals is different, and the stent price is another thing added to it. So these stent prices would go very high. So presently they have been regulated. It was said there is 1,000% increase in prices also which was seen in stents. 100% increase means double the price. 1,000% increase means 10 times the price. So this is the step taken, the price being regulated. So normal stents means bare metal stents are there, and drug eluting means while being in place they also elute drugs. Drugs are also released so that this blockage does not take place too. So generally it's the drug eluting drugs only, stents only, which are generally used. So this is there. The next news item is law may make your home appear less hazy. So this is a law which has been passed by the government, Real Estate Regulation and Development Act. So it has been said that the private equity investment in real estate has increased drastically. So it has increased by 62% in 2016. So this is because of Real Estate Regulation and Development Act, because now assurances have come. There is a real estate regulatory authority which is to be established by every state, and many states have already taken initiatives here. Draft rules have been formulated, and now in January even Tamil Nadu joined these states, Maharashtra, Karnataka, UP, Rajasthan, in providing draft rules for real estate regulatory authorities. So what are the provisions of this act is important. We'll see that, and what the consumer sees when he is buying a house and how this act takes care of these is discussed here. So consumer basically wants first that the builder has complied with the laws. So when a person is buying a house, you want that builder has complied with the laws. There's nothing illegal in it. Then there is another, that promise on timeline and delivery is kept. Second, the title deeds are clear, in whose name the title will be provided, deeds will be provided, how will it be, all that is clear. The construction quality is top notch. So these are the 4 points which a person generally looks into when he is buying a house in real estate sector. So here the Real Estate Regulation and Development Act, what the rules provide for under this act are these, that all new projects are to be registered with the regulator. So this is the Real Estate Regulatory Authority, RERA. So they'll have to be registered under them. All projects are to be sold on the basis of carpet area. So there was carpet area, then built up area, super built up area. We have discussed this in the budget video as well. So what does carpet area basically means? Carpet area is the area which is where the carpet is placed. So the built up area which is there is including also the width of the walls, the balcony area. So all this added to the price which is demanded from the consumer is not correct. So this is the regulation, that projects should be sold on the basis of carpet area. Then the super built up area was area including also the lift area, the passage area. So all this will no longer be allowed. Also then the regulator which has to be established, this is there. The regulator, Real Estate Regulatory Authority, has to be established within 1 year from the act being implemented. So that is act effected on May 1, 2016, it came into effect. So post that, in 1 year, RERA has to be formed by all state governments. So that's what we saw. A few states have made initiatives, draft rules have been provided, some have notified rules also. So they have 1 year state time frame till May 2017, 1st May 2017, these should come into functioning. Also, once this RERA is established by all states, each of these Real Estate Regulatory Authority should form the regulations regarding day-to-day functioning within 3 months. So this is there. Real Estate Appellate Tribunals will also be formed by April 30, 2017. So in appeal, they would go to Real Estate Appellate Tribunals. So these provisions are there. 70% of the money which the project, for the project which has been provided by the consumers, they have to be put in escrow account. Means they cannot be used for some other project. You take money here, invest somewhere else, and then this project is delayed. So that's what we generally see. So that would not happen anymore. So all these points are put forth. Advance amount which you can take for a project which has been sold is 10%, maximum 10%, right, prior to inking the agreement. So these all aspects are there. Complaints which go to the RERA of the consumers, they have to be resolved within 60 days by the regulatory authority. And home buyers can complain directly to this regulatory authority. Also, one point is that developers have a liability for 5 years to repair any structural damage. So that is also there. Then this is the gist of all these points. So the important points have been put here. There is imprisonment also up to 3 years if developers are found guilty of fraud. So this is also there. Right. Then the next news item is why Earth's inner core doesn't melt. So the layers of the Earth are crust, mantle, and the core. The core has outer core and inner core. Outer core is liquid, but inner core is solid. So inner core is the hottest. It is hotter than the sun's surface temperature too, but still it is solid. So why is it solid? It is understood that this is because of the pressure which comes on them. But then what is the specific details of this pressure? What element and how is it formed? So it's majorly made of iron. So what are the crystallines formed here, and all that has been studied by these researchers in Sweden, and they found that on the edge of this inner core, pieces of crystal structure continuously melt and diffuse. They melt, they diffuse, and they again reinserted because of the high pressure, and they maintain their solid stable structure. So inner core is solid, that is one. So this, it says the energy distribution cycle, that it melts, co-diffuses, then comes back, pushed back. So that results in the crystal staying stable and the core staying solid. So this is regarding inner core being solid. At least you should know this, that inner core is solid, and reason majorly is because of this pressure, heavy pressure coming from this layers around it. Then the next news item, the last one is, now partly living biobots can age and heal too. So this is 3D printing which has been done by scientists of soft biobots. So bio means biological and bots stands for robots. So biological robots, biobots. So they have living tissues. They can walk, swim, they can age also, and they can heal if they are injured. So these will be biobots. So this 3D printing of these small biobots have been done. What is 3D printing? We'll also discuss that. This has already been asked by UPSC and it can ask again too. So these biobots which have been formed are seeded with muscle cells. So they can self-organize to form functional tissues and they are partially living, you can say. So this is the claim being made, and this has many applications possible in future. So this is 3D printing. First of all, we'll discuss, and the biobots too, what they actually mean. So this is that you have an idea that you want to form something of some shape or some design character. So a 3D image is created. So that is computer aided design. So SCAD software is used to form the 3D image, that what dimension, what shape, feature you want. So that 3D image is done. Then the printer software slicing happens, these layers of what layers, every layer is sliced up, that this part should be formed, and then there are these 3D printers. So the material is put into them in these 3D printers, and then based on the design which has been fed through the software, the printer will produce this 3D object. So idea becomes a reality. It can be anything you want, any shape, any type you want. Using this software, you design it, printer software slices it, and then the printer actually prints it. So these layers, each sliced layer is printed and then accumulated. So this you can see a laser source is there, and the material is also put in. What material you want to use, you use that material, and then these printing is done. So in this present news, that is the biobots. So these are biological robots. So when biological aspect is used, means muscle cells are used. So using these muscle cells as the material too, you can have composite also, another material together with muscle cell, and then using these you can have the material, the design which you want. So that was done, biological robots built using human cells. Right? So that is it. Thank you.